From an MCU adventure to a live-action adaptation of a children's cartoon, these movies avoided R ratings by ditching scenes that were overly gory, too explicit, or simply in poor taste. There are only a few big DC heroes that you can easily imagine in an R-rated feature, but Batman is definitely among them. He's a gritty character who operates in a dreary city fighting underworld criminals, but all his movies, even the Christopher Nolan ones, have always been PG-13 or tamer. When director Zack Snyder paired The Dark Knight with The Man of Steel in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, though, he wanted to go darker than ever before. If Snyder had gotten his way, Batman v Superman would have been even more mature.
Tell me. Do you bleed?
Snyder has spoken before about extended versions of certain scenes in the movie that would have earned it an R rating. He revealed to Collider that there were some violent moments that had to be trimmed, like the opening. The director clarified, "The opening of the movie, the North African sequence, is really much different. These deleted moments weren't seen in theaters, but they did show up in the ultimate cut of the film, which was released on Blu-ray and DVD." Speaking to Entertainment Weekly, star Ben Affleck said he was completely in favor of the more violent version being made available, saying, "Why not have an R-rated version that you release for download or on DVD later? I think that's smart." Set during a wild post-graduation party, Can't Hardly Wait follows a group of teens as they look for love, sex, and revenge. With some edgy late 90s gags and a PG-13 rating, it's not quite a sex comedy, but it's also not exactly family-friendly. Either way, it was almost rated R, and there was plenty left on the cutting room floor after the studio made the last-minute decision to help it get a wider audience. Actor Seth Green told Vulture in 2015, "There was like 40 minutes of that movie that was cut out. The movie was originally an R-rated movie. Sony, in the midst of putting it out, it was at the very beginning of the re-emergence of the teen comedy, was scared. Everyone was really kind of concerned about what it was gonna be." According to the actor, CGI was used to delete a beer bong in one scene, while a sequence involving weed brownies had to be removed. Some deleted scenes may even help explain other odd moments in the PG-13 version of the movie. Green continued, "Jason Segel's got a watermelon that is filled with vodka and kept in his freezer for all of senior year. And then he brings it out to celebrate. Everybody goes for it and it shatters on the ground. So that's why he's eating watermelon for the rest of the movie." It's one thing when an R-rated sex comedy is cut down to get a softer rating like Can't Hardly Wait. It's much more rare, though, for a film that's designed to be a family comedy, one based on an iconic children's cartoon no less, to contain R-rated moments that had to be pulled. If writer James Gunn and actor Sarah Michelle Gellar are to be believed, though, that's exactly what happened with the 2002 live-action adaptation of Scooby-Doo. According to Gunn, the movie was originally slapped with an R rating by the MPAA, and plenty of changes had to be made. One scene that was deleted depicted a soul-swapped Daphne and Velma locking lips. As Gellar confirmed on Watch What Happens Live, there was an actual kiss between Daphne and Velma that got cut. "I feel like the world wants to see it, I don't know where it is." That's not all, as Gellar tells it, there was also a scene removed that raised questions over Fred's sexuality. She elaborated, "There's always been an implication about Fred being interested in both parties. It all got cut."
He planned this somehow, didn't he?
Hey, good looking.
When Jim Carrey came to fame in the mid-90s, it was for a string of vulgar comedies that included The Mask and Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Though they were all rated PG-13, they pushed the envelope as far as they could with jokes that stretched the boundaries of good taste. For the 1994 Farrelly Brothers classic Dumb and Dumber, one scene was filmed that pushed the movie's inappropriateness levels way over the edge. Watching it back now, it's pretty easy to understand why it was made much shorter. The moment comes at a truck stop when Harry and Lloyd stop to refuel their vehicle and stretch their legs. Lloyd goes to use the men's room and spots a little bit of graffiti scrawled on the store that promises some manly love at 2:15 a.m. Noticing it's exactly 2:15 at that moment, Lloyd turns around to find Seabass entering the men's room. The scene made it into the movie's final cut. But what didn't are some of the violent statements that the trucker makes towards Lloyd. The rest of the film may have been full of gross-out gags and over-the-top vulgarity. But this explicit threat of sexual assault and murder would have no doubt pushed the picture into R-rated territory. Steven Spielberg's Jaws might not be classified as a horror movie by today's standards, but it definitely had some spine-tingling scares that had audiences in 1975 jumping out of their seats. Despite being centered around a bloodthirsty shark that's menacing a coastal community, it might surprise younger film fans who haven't yet seen it that the film is actually rated PG and contains very little actual bloodshed. Most of the deaths are off-screen, and the shark itself isn't even seen clearly very often. In many ways, it's a lack of gore that contributes to the film's scare factor. But if the movie had been released as originally intended, it would have included at least one graphic moment likely warranting an R rating. In the movie, Chief Brody's son Michael and his friends are out sailing when their boat is overturned by the shark. Coming to their aid is a man in a paddle boat. But in what would have been the most jaw-dropping moment in the movie, the shark emerges out of nowhere and devours the man, dragging him under as he clings to a screaming child. In a behind-the-scenes featurette, actor Ted Grossman, who played the victim, admitted, "It was just so violent, so horrendous, that they couldn't use it." Spielberg agreed, saying that it was too bloody and that the scene was in bad taste.
I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch. I'm going to see you later, bro.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is famously one of the films that prompted the creation of the PG-13 rating, as some parents were outraged at some of the violence in the PG-rated flick during test screenings. The action-packed prequel sees the whip-wielding relic hunter in India, facing off against a demonic cult that engages in human sacrifice. The most infamous scene involves the cult's leader tearing the still-beating heart out of a man's chest and holding it aloft. The final cut is pretty violent, but it was almost even worse. A number of scenes were removed from the film, presumably so it could avoid an R rating. One depicted a thuggy torturer who's seen brutalizing a group of slave children before he himself is burned by lava in grisly fashion. Reporting on the uproar surrounding the film, the New York Times revealed that censors in the United Kingdom were horrified that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom had managed to get a PG rating in the States. Journalist Algene Harmetz wrote, James Furman, secretary of the British board, said that Indiana Jones, as it stands, cannot even receive the more restrictive 15 rating, which prohibits children under age 15 from seeing the film. To get a 15 rating, he said, a scene depicting the slow burning to death of a man who is in absolute agony must be trimmed. In 2022, Black Adam was supposed to change the hierarchy of power in the DC Extended Universe, with the arrival of Dwayne Johnson as the titular anti-hero. Instead, the movie bombed at the box office, and James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC reboot was announced soon after. Unlike Gunn's R-rated redo of The Suicide Squad from the year prior, though, Black Adam had some scenes removed and altered to tone down the blood and gore.
Heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
According to producer Hiram Garcia, Black Adam was originally rated R, and some scenes had to be axed in order to get the PG-13 rating the studio wanted. He told Collider, "We really wanted to make sure that we honored the character of Black Adam. One of the things he's known for is his aggression and violence. And to do a Black Adam movie that didn't have that just wouldn't have been authentic. So we always went into this knowing that we were going to push it as far as we did." The only deleted scene that has come to light so far was discussed by VFX artists Nikos Kalasidis and Greg Teagarden in an interview with Befores and Afters. They described a moment where Black Adam violently tears an arm from a mercenary soldier, and it spasms after hitting the ground. Teagarden joked, "You can't have a disembodied hand lying on the ground and the finger just all of a sudden twitching." It's rare that the Star Trek franchise goes too far with its content, but in the series' second big screen outing, the creators almost went overboard with one particular scene. The film that remains the most beloved in the franchise, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, saw Ricardo Montalban's genetically augmented super tyrant return from exile and seek revenge on Captain Kirk. There was an entire character removed from a key subplot that involved Khan's quest for vengeance, though: the villain's child. The toddler was originally supposed to pop up at the climax of the film, when Khan detonates the Genesis device in a last-ditch effort to kill Kirk. In a deleted scene, the device sucks the kid into its vortex before destroying the entire ship. The full scene has never surfaced, but images from the sequence were published in Starblazer magazine in 1982. With the horrific death of an infant at the center of this major scene, it's not hard to see why the whole thing was scrapped. When one conjures up an image of an R-rated Marvel movie, Thor probably isn't the hero that springs to mind. However, according to actor Christian Bale, who played the villainous Gore the God Butcher in Thor: Love and Thunder, there are actually a series of deleted scenes that would have made the Thunder God's Thor solo outing an R-rated affair. Regarding his collaboration with director Taika Waititi, Bale told Inverse, "With Thor: Love and Thunder, Taika and me, we kind of knew that some of the stuff we were doing probably wouldn't end up in the film, but we wanted to just push it and see." So what happened? Despite their wish to push the boundaries of what could appear in an MCU movie, both Bale and Waititi eventually agreed that the scenes they shot weren't right. Bale continued, "Ultimately, it is and should be a film that all the family can go and enjoy. And Chris Hemsworth, a couple of times he looked at me, it was like, dude, that's a little too far. I don't think anyone's gonna want to see that unless it's an R-rated film."
You really have to stop meeting like this.
Call the axe.
Don't call the axe when you call the dentist.
Despite those moments not making it to theaters, Bale says he has no regrets since he had a great time filming regardless. Based on a series of young adult novels, the Divergent films follow Tris Pryor, a defiant young woman in a dark future where people are segregated based on their virtues. When she joins the Dauntless faction due to her bravery, she realizes that she is different from the rest, and she must keep her unique nature a secret as the world teeters on the brink of war. Squarely aimed at tweens and teens, the first movie in the franchise had to cut some moments that were deemed too harsh for the PG-13 rating the studio was aiming for. Despite being directly adapted from a sequence in the book, it was decided that the scene in Divergent in which Dauntless rookie Edward is stabbed in the eye was simply too brutal to show. Though it did find its way onto the deleted scenes portion of the home video release, its removal from the actual film clearly disappointed actor Ben Lamb, who considered his character's brutal disfigurement a highlight of the production. Lamb told Collider, "The scene that I really enjoyed the most was the eye stabbing. It's very gruesome." According to director Neil Berger, the eye stabbing scene was actually removed to fix the flow of the movie rather than to help it get a PG-13 rating.